Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are talking about Elon Musk's newest tweets on a new US Gigafactory for the central United States, and then we also have updated short interest to discuss at the end. Tesla stock on the day today did finish up 6.1% to $645.33. That compared to the Nasdaq up 4.95%, though after hours today, Tesla did finish down 3.1% to around $625 per share. That after hours move did happen before these Elon Musk tweets came out. If you have yet to see those tweets, Elon says, quote, "Scouting locations for Cybertruck Gigafactory will be Central USA," end quote. Then tagging on immediately after that, quote, "Model Y production for East Coast too," end quote. This caused some confusion initially if Elon meant one Cybertruck Gigafactory in Central US and then a second for Model Y production on the East Coast, or if that simply meant that that same Gigafactory would be also used for Model Y production for the East Coast. Elon has since clarified that he was only talking about one Gigafactory, so Central US Gigafactory with Cybertruck production, as well as Model Y production for the East Coast, and presumably for some of that Central US as well. So obviously we've discussed this topic before with Elon tweeting back in early February, Giga Texas with a poll, yes or no, and then he also changed at the time his location on Twitter to Austin, Texas. So it seemed like Texas was the move. We went through the pros and cons of Texas at that time, so we'll go through that again here quickly. But before we start looking at those individual options, I think it's important to get a sense of what the central US region is, what it contains. If we look at the central time zone, the west border for the central time zone happens through North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, a pretty clean line there with the states. And then the eastern border of the central time zone is Lake Michigan, on down through the west coast of Indiana, splits Kentucky, splits Tennessee, contains Alabama, and then contains just a little sliver of the panhandle of Florida. So you're looking at about 15 states here in the central time zone. And then I think if you went a little bit further east on that boundary, I don't think anybody would call you crazy for calling some of those states like Michigan or Ohio central US. So looking at these states, I think you can pretty much rule out the northwestern corner of the central region. No offense to anybody in that region. I'm in that region myself in Wisconsin, but I think you can throw out North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri. Maybe one of those states could put together a good deal for Tesla, but I think the population density is pretty low. You're pretty far from ports if you need to import any materials, and the further west you go in the central region, the closer you are to Fremont, reaping probably less logistical benefits from a second location in the US. That still leaves you with a pretty big list. You've got Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and maybe Georgia. Still a lot of states there, 14 of them, but it does give us a list to narrow down from. Don't worry, I'm not going to go individual state by individual state here, but let's bring back Texas to discuss some of the reasons that we thought that might be a good choice previously, some of the disadvantages as well. The two biggest advantages I saw for Texas were the engineering talent that you have there. The University of Texas is based in Austin. US News ranked that as the 11th best engineering program. I believe access to engineering talent will be one of the fundamental reasons for their location choice. Elon has said it multiple times. That's their biggest constraint. And then the other major factor for Texas is simply the size of the market. It is the second highest selling state, only to California for autos. And it's the largest state market for trucks, which would be a huge benefit to production of the Cybertruck. I think those are the two biggest advantages for Texas. And then you've also got a lot of potential in the solar and storage business in the state, as well as Elon having experience in the state with SpaceX. So looking at these other states, let's try to apply some of the same logic there, with I think engineering talent being the best place to start. Again, coming back to the US News ranking of engineering programs, this was the first result on Google, so I'm sure there are other rankings out there that vary significantly, but this should give us a decent start. If we narrow down to the top 25 engineering programs and then just isolate which ones of those are in the central region, we've got Wisconsin coming in at number 22, but again, we probably already ruled out Wisconsin. Then we have Northwestern in Illinois at number 20. We have Texas A&M in College Station, Texas at number 15. Again, University of Texas in Austin at number 11. Then you have Illinois at number 10, Purdue, which is in Indiana, at number 8, Georgia number 7, and Michigan number 5. So from that, I think you can put together a little bit of a top 5 states list with probably Texas and Michigan 1 and 2, maybe Illinois number 3, followed by Georgia and Indiana, which I think gives us a pretty good starting point, at least in terms of engineering talent. The next idea that I want to pull in here is Amazon's sort of ill-fated headquarters 2 search, which of course ended up with them picking New York and then backing out and expanding in Virginia instead. But before that, Amazon did narrow their list to 20 finalists, and while there are absolutely differences between Amazon's search and Tesla's search, I think there are a lot of similarities too, with Amazon looking to branch out further east from Seattle, Tesla looking to branch out further east from California, with both looking to acquire top talent. You also know these places are willing to give incentives to bring top businesses to their area. So a lot of similarities here, and if we isolate on that top 20 list into the central region, we've got Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, Indianapolis, Indiana, Columbus, Ohio, and Chicago, Illinois. Interestingly, and I swear I didn't look this up beforehand, all of those except for 2 fall into the top 5 engineering states. The 2 that don't are Columbus, Ohio, and Nashville, Tennessee. For Columbus, you've got Ohio State University falling just outside that top 25 on US News' list at number 27. You also have the University of Dayton at number 47. And then for Nashville, you've got Vanderbilt at number 39 and University of Tennessee in Knoxville at number 58. So nothing unreasonable, but quite a bit behind Texas. Notably then, you have Michigan appearing in that top 5 engineering state list, but not in Amazon's top 20 finalist list. The other couple of pieces of information that I would tag on here is that we do have TechCrunch journalist Kirsten Korosek reporting that, quote, a source with knowledge of the talks said Nashville is on a short list of contenders, end quote. And then we also have the Wall Street Journal reporting that Musk emailed them after these tweets, and of course after I recorded a lot of this, saying, quote, incentives play a role, but so do logistics costs, access to a large workforce with a wide range of talents, and quality of life, end quote. So again, I think a lot of overlap there with Amazon's search. Putting all of this information together, I think it's pretty clear that Texas is really close to the top of their list. Probably the biggest hindrance to Texas right now is their inability to actually sell Tesla vehicles within the state due to the entrenched dealership network and the lobbying going on within the state. Previously, we discussed that as a potential positive because that could be a bargaining chip for Texas to help get Tesla in the state if they were able to allow those direct sales. And it wouldn't shock me if Elon was sort of floating this broader non-Texas Gigafactory idea to strengthen his negotiation position in those conversations with Texas. Beyond that, in terms of some of these other options, I feel pretty good about the narrowing that we've done. And I would say because of Tesla's interest in Texas, I would imagine they probably want to be a little bit further south if given the option. I would think that access to those ports and proximity to Mexico would be at least somewhat important, though I'm definitely not a supply chain expert. And then I think there are advantages to being east as well because you have more of the population density over there, and you're increasing your distance from both Fremont and Nevada, which should be more optimal for logistics. So with all of that combined, plus this rumor that we have from TechCrunch, I definitely see Nashville as being up there on the list. And then I think Atlanta makes a lot of sense for similar reasons to Nashville. And then you've also got Georgia being a top 10 engineering program and Atlanta being on Amazon's list as well. I think that probably rounds out my top 3. And then probably a distant second tier from that would be those more northern options like somewhere in Illinois, Michigan, or maybe Columbus. Illinois in general, I've heard is not a great place to do business. Sorry if anyone's in Illinois and disagrees with that, but my sense from being in Wisconsin, just a little bit north, is that many in Illinois would actually agree with that. So I kind of think that's unlikely. And then in terms of Michigan, you've definitely got your legacy auto business there. So you could get some talent from that, but I don't know how much of that legacy blood you want to interject into Tesla. And then the automotive business is pretty big in Ohio as well. So definitely curious to hear people's thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll set up a little poll with the top options on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. Next up today, we have updated short interest on Tesla stock for the February 28th settlement date. Short interest continued to fall by 1.7 million shares to just 16.7 million shares sold short currently. That's down about 9% from the 18.4 million shares sold short as of February 14th. Tesla's got about 184 million shares outstanding, so the 16.7 million shares sold short represents about 9% of the total share count. And Yahoo Finance puts the float share count, which is the share count that's not held by ultra-long investors like Elon Musk, which is always a debatable number, but they put that number at 144 million shares, which means that the short interest would be about 12% of float. So these numbers are very, very low for Tesla. This is actually the 9th consecutive short interest reporting period that we have had declines in short interest. That's a good thing for the stock. That means there are fewer outstanding shares out there, so less supply. Supply and demand means the price is going to be a little bit higher per share when short interest is lower. But it does also mean that there are a lot of people out there that have shorted Tesla in the past that are currently seeing Tesla with a relatively high valuation to where it's been in the past that may decide to, hey, let's step back in and short Tesla again. So that could pump a lot of extra shares into the market, and that could cause the stock to fall if shorts hop back in. Now, I do think there have been fundamental changes in Tesla to reduce the appeal of shorting the company. We've talked a lot about that, so it's not necessarily something I expect to a huge degree. I would be kind of surprised if we don't see some increase in the next short interest update, which happens on March 24th for the March 13th settlement date, just given what we've seen happening in the market and sort of all the volatility and negative macro environment. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that, but as short interest continues to fall, these numbers are becoming a little bit more normal relative to other stocks. They're certainly not normal yet, but I think it gives us an appreciation for just how crazy high short interest was before. I mean, in June, we had 44 million shares sold short. So by share count at least, short interest is down 62% from that peak. That is it for today, though. As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And I'll see you next time for the Wednesday, March 11th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.